it's your local dead girl, here today to discuss a game called Trapped: Escape the Tower. This game is actually based on a British game show that was dark fantasy themed, and it is entirely the basis for the game, as it is based on one of the seasons. However, the game is in fact lost media in the sense that it is no longer playable. This is because it had servers where you could play with your friends with I think up to 6 people, as I actually used to play with my friends before it was taken down. The game has this website still up in the Wayback Machine, but obviously the game is inaccessible as the servers have been taken down, and if there is a way to find the game, which no longer seems to be very easy to do as of 2015, it is still not easily playable as it would require servers to run it. Here is another page on the website for the how to play section of the Trapped game. First, it begins with Escape the Tower, how to play. Are you a team player or a sneaky saboteur? Play with other people around the country to complete the challenges and escape the tower. Only one will win the Key of Freedom and the rest remain trapped. So that is the basics of the game, where there were, I believe, 5 players who were team players, and there was 1 player who was a sneaky saboteur. The controls were very basic. The game itself had instructions on how to play, which is no longer accessible, just like the game. This is, you can click on it and play the game, but I'm fairly sure if I click on it, nothing will happen. This shows the 3 of the characters that you can play as, and I'm not quite sure what this is. Some sort of, I'm not sure, a creature or a person who is very disturbed. This is the tower itself, and it had a very 2000s art style, that's for sure, that reflects the time it released. Here it explains all of the challenges you have to pass and complete, where your goal is to work as a team as a saboteur obviously tries to sabotage you. So floor 6 is called Body Shock. To pass this challenge, you must work together and assemble the body parts scattered around the room. Beware the blackouts, the saboteur will be fiendishly trying to spoil the game. Floor 5, Fairy Trials. To pass this challenge, work together to decide if the fairies are good or bad. If it's a good fairy, release it. If it's a bad fairy, burst it. Floor 4, Sleep Creepers. To pass this challenge, the team must turn off all the alarm clocks before the time is up. Beware the blackouts, the slippery saboteur will be up and about. Floor 3, One-Eyed Watcher. To pass this challenge, together you must guess which cup the Watcher has hidden his rather large eyeball under. Yuck. Floor 2, Fight for Freedom. This is it, the grand finale. Beat your opponent to the Key of Freedom. Only one will escape and the other remains trapped. These are the basics of how to play the game, and this other website link is on TV. I believe this is discussing how it is connected to the television show itself. Yes, this is the children's adventure game show where 6 children work together to complete challenges. I have never seen the show itself, but it does sound very interesting, and I believe the Trapped game show is still accessible, though it would not be accessible through this link, I doubt, anyhow. I'd have to actually look into it closer to see if the Trapped TV show itself is accessible, but I don't really see any reason why it wouldn't be, as mainly the reason the game is inaccessible is simply because, well, frankly, I also imagine there was low demand after a certain point, and it probably just got too expensive to run when no one was really using it besides like a couple of people who were interested in revisiting their old games for nostalgia purposes. This basically shows all the series themselves and little pictures of it. Obviously these are showing the inspiration seems to be connected to the series itself, which is how the game is connected. That's everything that's available on the Wayback Machine, and obviously the game itself is no longer accessible. So, onto its creation. I found this link for someone named Fritz Solares, who was involved in game design and development. There is a blog article from April of 2009 for the Trapped game, mentioning it is connected to the BBC, it's a Flash game, its multiplayer, and so forth. It is a multiplayer game for CBBC, which is based on the TV show, as I stated. This basically describes how the game works and that it was involved with the BBC prototyping team. This link will direct to the BBC Co UK website for research and development. And most of this is not involved with the situation, as I imagine that's not their top priority. And they describe how they had to get a multiplayer server set up, which is most likely why it is no longer accessible due to the multiplayer aspect, and because it had to be run on the BBC infrastructure, and it was likely no longer needed. No one was really going out of their way to play this game, especially as it had been built on the Flash client, and there have been many issues with Flash games being lost. Flash games that require multiplayer cannot even be saved and released for you to play, as there would have to be servers set up and it would take quite a lot of work, and most people don't have those means to do so. Apparently it was a very difficult game to make as well. And as for the image, this shows a screenshot of the game whenever it was being played. It shows the 6 players, and one of them is secretly a saboteur, and they have a timer which is almost running out, where they have to complete the challenge within the timer, and obviously the saboteur would try to make sure it did not get complete. And there are these little dialogue bits saying, "Those glowing lights are cool. Our Memi's the best, get it? Which of you meanies is a saboteur?" And these options to speak, reflecting how the game was played. There is also probably gameplay on YouTube, as I'm sure people have recorded gameplay videos, so it is not entirely lost in the sense of being able to look at it and view how the gameplay worked, but being able to play the game yourself is no longer possible. And onto the Trapped game, I'm going to discuss a little more in detail about Trapped and how these challenges were set up. Due to the existence of the Trapped game show wiki, there is actually an entire page discussing Trapped Escape the Tower. This page discusses the release of the game and how it was connected to the end of the 3rd series. It discusses how these challenges within the game were sometimes taken from the show, and it discusses how players are then obligated to select a character from a list of 6 boys or 6 girls. This actually explains something that had confused me, as it has been a long time since I've played this game, and looking for images of these players, I found multiple images of them. This one shows, I often played this little goth girl, I remember that much. This one is actually showing some different characters with these 6 players. Some of them are the same, but they are definitely different characters. So it seems they actually had a variety of characters to choose between. These players are selected to be the saboteur or the team player, and this explains how there was actually a voice giving hints to the saboteur, which seemed to have actually happened in the series itself. However, in April 2009, the game had been hacked, and this cut off some of the screen, making many of the challenges broken or unplayable. In Body Shock, the crank was now invisible, and it seems like that could have caused some difficulties, and then eventually the game was finally unplayable as of 2015. This also seems to explain why it may have not been accessible anymore, as due to the hacking, they probably decided it wasn't financially worth it to keep this running. And now this discusses all of the games in a little bit more detail. So Body Shock involves assembling the body of a mummy, as was seen in one of the images. Many blackouts would occur, so the saboteur could turn a different crank, which will make it difficult to retrieve the body parts. And the players are able to use these 2 little chat buttons to motivate the team. And Fairy Trials discusses another challenge. They now need to decide to release or blow up the fairies. The saboteur will then be told which fairies must be blown up and then which must be released. Now, the saboteur must follow a rule to know which fairies are bad, and then they have to persuade their peers to trick them into choosing the wrong options. And it seems they were involved with red hair, short hair, or without gloves, as those were 3 chat buttons they were given to make their choice. Next is Sleep Creepers, and this involves a challenge where they have to switch off all of these 8 alarm clocks before the timer is off. And they can do this by touching the clocks. The saboteur then has to use the blackout to switch the clocks back on, which makes it difficult, and then they have to arrive at their bed so that no one knows who did it. And the chat buttons are once again encouragements. The next one is One-Eyed Watcher. This is involving guessing which cup the eye is in, and the cups have to be moved around. However, the saboteur can see the eye through transparency, which means they can actually give them the wrong cup. They have to use the positive or negative buttons to lead or bring the players to the correct or incorrect decisions, depending on if they are a player or a saboteur. And finally, the fight for this involves the 2 remaining players navigating through a maze, activating switches to open a trapdoor to the Key of Freedom. They must choose their opponent's movement to sabotage each other. And there are 3 bothers in the maze, and if they touch one, they are sent back to their starting position. The winner of the game earns their freedom, and the other remains trapped. If they don't manage to reach their key before the time runs out, then they're both trapped. There's also a section for the voting mechanism, as there was a saboteur, so players get to vote for who they think the saboteur is. If the team passes a challenge, then the saboteur is automatically trapped. If they fail, then the person with the most votes is trapped. And if there's a tie, then a player is picked at random, and that person is trapped. It was a very fun game from experience playing, and it is a shame that it has been lost. But the gameplay can still be found online, so go ahead and watch it, and I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you for watching. Your local dead girl is out.